She got the role not because she was a great singer, she got the role because she's a fantastic actor.
They said she was Hollywood's next big thing, a Golden Globe winner with a Disney crown in her future. But after back-to-back flops and a stage production no one's buying tickets for, Rachel Zegler's career is raising serious questions. How does someone go from Spielberg's darling to fronting a $300 million box office disaster, and then follow it up with empty seats at London's most prestigious theater? This isn't just about one actress. It's about how Hollywood keeps forcing stars the public never asked for. And the deeper you look, the more surreal this manufactured rise and quiet collapse starts to feel. Let's talk numbers, because that's where this whole story starts to fall apart. Disney's live-action Snow White finally crossed the $200 million mark worldwide. Sounds like a win, right? Until you realize the budget was reportedly around $260 to $269 million before reshoots. Once those extra filming days, crew costs, and delays were added in, insiders estimate the total production cost ballooned closer to $300 million. And that's not even counting marketing, which likely added another $100 million, even with Disney's scaled-back promo campaign. All in, we're looking at a nearly $400 million investment. Now consider that studios don't keep every dollar made at the box office. After theaters take their cut, Disney walks away with roughly 50% of that $200 million, about $100 million, give or take. That's a $300 million hole in the company's pocket. For context, that's more than the entire production budget of 2 Dune movies combined. And yet, for reasons that defy logic, Disney still placed the fate of this colossal investment on the shoulders of a relative newcomer. Rachel Zegler, whose only major credit before this was West Side Story, a critically praised musical that barely made a dent at the box office. She hadn't proven she could lead a successful blockbuster, and yet she was handed one of the most iconic roles in the company's entire vault. Why? That's the question that keeps coming up. Why gamble nearly $500 million on a name the general public barely knows? It wasn't just risky, it was reckless. And now, instead of being a crowning achievement, Snow White has become a financial cautionary tale. One that's not just about a movie, it's about a system that keeps making the same mistake. So who exactly is Rachel Zegler, and why did Disney, and much of Hollywood, decide she was the next breakout star? Let's rewind. Zegler made her major debut in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story in 2021. It was a high-profile remake with critical acclaim and a Golden Globe win for her performance. But let's be honest, awards don't always translate to real-world buzz. The film earned praise from critics, sure, but it barely pulled in $76 million globally against a budget of around $100 million. That's not a breakout. That's a quiet whisper in a very loud industry. Yet despite that soft launch, studios latched onto her. She was quickly cast in Shazam, Fury of the Gods, another underperformer, and then handed the lead in Disney's Snow White, one of the most treasured properties in their vault. It's like the industry skipped every natural step in building a career and went straight to leading lady of a $300 million movie. And this is where things start to feel off. Normally, an actor builds momentum, supporting roles, smaller films, indie darlings. That's how Zendaya did it. That's how Florence Pugh built her name. Even Timothée Chalamet didn't land Dune without a string of smaller, critically respected performances. But with Zegler, it feels like the system decided for the audience, you're going to like her, trust us. The problem is, audiences never signed up for that. Most casual moviegoers still don't know who she is. There was no time to form a connection, no standout performance that stuck in the public memory, just a string of high-budget films with low emotional impact. And when you skip the natural progression, the risk multiplies. There's no foundation to fall back on, no loyal fan base to carry you through missteps. Instead, you're exposed front and center, expected to carry a legacy title before you've had a chance to prove you're ready. That's not fair to her. But that's exactly what happened. If there was ever a test of Rachel Zegler's star power outside of Hollywood's protective bubble, it's happening right now in London, and the results aren't good. Zegler is currently starring as Eva Peron in Evita at the prestigious London Palladium. On paper, it's the kind of role that signals artistic credibility, a demanding part in a legendary musical at one of the most iconic theaters in the world. The promotional materials push her Golden Globe win, her Disney lead role, and her appearance in the Hunger Games. It's clear they expected her name to fill seats. But here's the problem. No one's buying tickets. When you check the official box office site, June performances show complete availability. Every seat, every show. The ticket platform uses a traffic light system to indicate sales, red for sold out, yellow for limited, green for wide open. And it's all green. That means the public response is not just cold, it's non-existent. To make it worse, other shows running at the same time don't have this problem. John Lithgow's production in the same city shows real demand, with tickets disappearing fast. That's what it looks like when someone has genuine draw, the kind that makes people pay premium prices and show up. Zegler, despite all the industry backing, doesn't seem to have that yet. And this matters. Theater is often more grounded than Hollywood. There are no flashy trailers, no massive ad campaigns. People buy tickets because they believe the performance will be worth their time. That's it. And right now, that belief just isn't there. What this proves isn't that Zegler lacks talent, but that public interest can't be faked. You can't manufacture hype forever. her. At some point, people either show up or they don't. Curious where things really turned for Rachel Zegler? Wait until you hear what she said before Snow White even hits theaters. Let's be clear, this isn't a smear campaign against Rachel Zegler. In fact, most critics agree that she's technically talented. She can sing, she can act, and she's handled some challenging roles. The issue isn't ability, it's connection, or rather, the lack of it. Audiences don't seem to dislike her. They just don't care enough to show up, and that's an even bigger problem in today's entertainment landscape. Gone are the days when a studio could slap a new face on a poster and expect crowds to pour in. Viewers are more selective now. They follow stories, characters, and authenticity, not marketing hype. Take Snow White. While Zegler was front and center, the criticism largely focused on the film's writing, concept, and deviation from the original. The movie didn't flop because of her alone, it flopped despite her efforts. But that still doesn't change the optics. When a star headlines multiple underperforming projects in a row, studios start to question their investment, whether fair or not. The painful reality? Hollywood misread the room. They assumed Zegler's early critical praise would automatically translate to mass appeal, but they forgot the crucial middle step, giving her time to build a relationship with audiences. Instead, she was fast-tracked, skipping the growth phase entirely. And when that connection never forms, even the most talented performer becomes invisible in a sea of content. But if public indifference was the quiet problem, what she said on camera lit the real firestorm. If there was a single moment that truly shifted public sentiment, it wasn't in a theater, it was in an interview. Before Snow White even hit screens, Rachel Zegler made headlines for all the wrong reasons. While promoting the film, she described the prince character from the original as a guy who literally stalks her, and stated that this version of Snow White wouldn't be saved by a man. Her intention may have been to reflect modern values, but the way it was said came off as dismissive, almost mocking, a classic that generations grew up loving. The backlash was instant. Social media erupted. Fans accused her of disrespecting the source material, while others pointed out that these comments alienated the very audience Disney was hoping to win over. You don't win people over by tearing down what they love. You do it by honoring the past while offering something new. That delicate balance is what successful adaptations get right. And Zegler's comments, whether fair or not, gave the impression that she didn't respect the original at all. Compare her approach to someone like Zendaya, who often speaks with gratitude and reverence about the projects she joins, whether it's Dune or Spider-Man, or Florence Pugh, who blends confidence with humility in press tours. That kind of tone builds goodwill. Zegler's, on the other hand, felt combative. What's worse, Disney didn't step in to control the damage. Here was no course correction, no public clarification, just a growing silence as the movie inched closer to release. And that silence allowed the narrative to harden. That Snow White wasn't a remake, it was a rejection. Zegler might have meant well, but in the world of media, perception is everything. And behind that perception lies a bigger problem, one Hollywood keeps repeating with alarming consistency. The Rachel Zegler situation isn't just about one actress. It's a symptom of something much bigger. Hollywood has a habit, an old one, of manufacturing stars in boardrooms and press tours instead of letting them earn their place organically. It's the same playbook we've seen before. Take an actor with a promising debut, throw them into multiple blockbuster roles, and expect the audience to just fall in love. But that model doesn't work anymore. Audiences have more choice than ever. They're not buying into hype. They're following authenticity. And when the hype feels forced, like it did with Zegler, people push back. You can draw a straight line from this situation to earlier Hollywood miscalculations. Think of Shia LaBeouf in the 2000s or Sam Worthington in the early 2010s. Both were pushed as the next big thing. Both starred in massive franchises. And yet the public never really connected with them. They weren't bad actors, but they were never given time to grow into the roles. The industry made the decision for the audience, and the audience said no thanks. Zegler's rise feels eerily similar. One major film, a Golden Globe, and suddenly she's the face of multi-hundred-million-dollar gambles. No indie arc, no character-building projects, just straight to the top, and unfortunately, straight to the fallout. The most ironic part, it didn't have to be this way. Zegler might have flourished in supporting roles or smaller films, building momentum slowly, letting audiences warm up to her. But when you skip the steps, you skip the connection. And without that connection, there's no foundation, just a fragile image, ready to crack under pressure. But even after Snow White's crash and Evita's silence, Hollywood wasn't done betting on her. Why? Let's look at the franchise that tried to salvage her star power. After the fallout from Snow White and the silent flop of Evita, Rachel Zegler's next big hope was The Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. On paper, it looked like a reset, an established franchise, a loyal fan base, and a darker, more dramatic role. Zegler played Lucy Gray Baird, the new female lead opposite a young Coriolanus Snow. It was a major opportunity to shift the narrative and prove she could carry a major film to success. And financially, the film did okay. It grossed around $330 million worldwide against a $100 million production budget. That's a win in most studios' books. success. But here's the catch. That success wasn't because of Zegler. It was in spite of her. Fans didn't show up for her name. They showed up for the Hunger Games. Franchise loyalty can't be underestimated. Audiences have a deep connection with Panem, Katniss, and the world Suzanne Collins created. The film's marketing leaned heavily on the return to that world, not the rising star attached to it. And when reviews came in, most of the attention went to the story and franchise nostalgia, not Zegler's performance. She wasn't the driving force. She was a supporting element. This highlights a crucial point. Being in a hit isn't the same as carrying one. Zegler benefited from the momentum of an IP juggernaut, but once that scaffolding is removed, what's left? Studios often mistake franchise success as proof of an actor's bankability, but the real test is what happens when there's no brand attached. No Katniss, no Disney crown, no Spielberg name. And so far, when Rachel Zegler is the centerpiece, the audience reaction is lukewarm at best. And yet, despite all the warning signs, Hollywood kept doubling down. But how long can they ignore the numbers before reality sets in? At this point, most rising stars would be quietly taking a step back, reassessing, rebuilding, and recalibrating. But Rachel Zegler's story is still unfolding in real time, and the industry seems hesitant to acknowledge what's becoming obvious. The strategy isn't working. After multiple high-profile misfires, both on-screen and on stage, the logical next step would be a controlled retreat. Not an exit, just a recalibration. So what would that look like? Ideally, it means choosing smaller, character-driven films where she can showcase her talent without carrying the weight of a $300 million production. Supporting roles in ensemble casts, indie films with strong writing, or prestige TV dramas could help her rebuild public trust. These lower-stakes projects give actors room to breathe, and more importantly, room to connect with viewers. No pressure to open a movie, no inflated expectations, just the work speaking for itself. Florence Pugh did this with films like Lady Macbeth before breaking out in Little Women. Timothée Chalamet did it with Call Me By Your Name. Zendaya earned respect in Euphoria before becoming a blockbuster name. That's the path that works. Slow, steady, and earned. But will the machine allow it? Hollywood doesn't like to admit mistakes. Executives who bet big on a star don't pivot easily, because walking away would mean admitting they misjudged. So instead, they keep doubling down, hoping the next project will stick. That's not just risky for the studio, it's dangerous for the actor. When someone is overexposed and under-delivering, public perception hardens. Fair or not, it becomes their narrative. And Rachel Zegler is nearing that point. She's not a villain, she's not a fraud, she's just caught in a system that's out of sync with how audiences form connections now. If she's given the space to reset, away from the spotlight, away from the industry's expectations, she still has a chance to build a career on her own terms. But Hollywood rarely slows down, and if they don't pull back soon, this quiet collapse could become permanent. Rachel Zegler's story is compelling, not because she's failed, but because she was never really given the chance to succeed on her own terms. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight, she was thrust into a Hollywood fantasy, plucked from obscurity, praised as a generational talent, and handed the keys to legacy franchises that normally require years of proven success to even approach. But stardom doesn't work like that anymore. Not in 2025. Not when audiences are more selective, more skeptical, and more saturated with options than ever before. What happened with Snow White, Evita, and even the Hunger Games isn't just about numbers, it's about trust. The audience has to trust that a performer understands them, that their presence in a project means something beyond marketing. When that trust isn't there, it doesn't matter how polished the trailers are or how expensive the production is. People won't show up, or worse, they'll show up once and never return. This is where the old Hollywood model keeps crashing. Studios believe they can manufacture buzz the same way they did in the 90s or early 2000s, by plastering a new face on every screen, handing out awards, and lining up press tours. But today's viewers aren't moved by PR campaigns. They're moved by performances that feel earned, real, and rooted in storytelling. And most importantly, they want to decide who they connect with. Rachel Zegler was robbed of that opportunity. Instead of allowing her to grow, they gave her the burden of legacy, the pressure of headlines, and the expectation of greatness, without the safety net of a loyal audience behind her. That's not just a miscalculation, it's a setup. And now, she carries the fallout of choices she likely had little control over. Still, it's not too late. Careers are long, and the smartest paths are rarely linear. If Zegler steps back, resets, and focuses on roles that speak to her strengths, not her marketability, she can reintroduce herself to the world. And this time, it would be on her terms. The industry needs to allow that, because continuing to shove rising talent into massive projects without audience buy-in doesn't just waste money, it burns out the very actors they're trying to build. In the end, this saga isn't just about a single actress. It's about an outdated system that hasn't caught up with the audience it claims to understand. Rachel Zegler's journey is a cautionary tale, yes, but it could also be a turning point. What happens next depends on whether Hollywood finally listens or keeps speaking into an echo chamber of its own design. What do you think? Is Rachel Zegler a victim of the system or a star pushed too far, too fast? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, give the video a like. It really helps more people see it. And if you want more deep dives into the stories Hollywood won't tell you, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. There's a lot more coming.